Welcome everyone to another episode of the Represented series. This is our Fireside Edition, and I'm really excited to welcome our next guest, Akeiva Ellis. Akeiva, welcome to the Represented series.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here, and it's always great chatting with you, Dana.
Yes, and likewise. I know you've been doing really amazing things internally and externally without the industry. So before we jump into our great conversation that I know we'll have, please tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Yes, absolutely. So I am both a financial planner and a financial educator. Right now, I am the financial education specialist at Ballantine Partners, which is a fee-only RIA out of the Boston area serving high and ultra high net worth families and individuals. And then outside of that, my husband and I co-run a financial literacy brand called The Bemuse, where we mostly focus on young adults helping people like us make sense of money. So that's in a nutshell some of the things that I do. I'm also a CFP board ambassador and lots of other fun stuff that I get to do to impact the industry.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm like all the other things that you do,
Yeah.
right? I feel like just as founders in general, we wear a lot of hats. And then, of course, you wear a lot of industry hats. So I'm so excited for people to learn more about you. But let's definitely start kind of with talking about the Muse, right? I mean, it's a business that you and your husband run. Tell us a little bit about the process behind that. Like what made you all want to start it together. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So the Bemuse was really born out of my desire to help people who are more like us. So I just mentioned I started my career at Ballantine Partners. I've been there, for 5 years at this point. That's the only place I've worked, in my entire post-grad career, essentially. And like I said, we serve the ultra high net worth market. So in my day-to-day work, I'm working with people who have, hundreds of millions of dollars in most cases. And, I'm learning all these things. I, went to, school, obviously, to be a CFP. I'm learning all these things about financial planning and about money, and really felt like I had no way to share all the things that I was learning with other people who were like me, who didn't come from wealth, who grew up in lower to middle class backgrounds and needed that information as well so that we could grow our wealth as well. So it was really born out of my desire to give back and to give people the information that they needed. And young adults have always had a special place in my heart. Being a young adult myself, Gen Z, I represent for them, yes. And just finding a way to, really help younger people, because I think it's a really critical life stage as well, where there's the potential for a lot of impact and compounding, for your life to
I'm
come.
just going to quickly shout out the elder millennials in the room that are watching. Just so we're here too. Okay, go
Yes,
ahead.
yes, you are, and that's the crazy part. It's like we talk about, young adults. We're really here for the millennials and Gen Z, but when you really look at who's engaging with our content, with our brand, there's also quite a bit of older people. Like even my mom and like my mom's cousin, who are like in their 60s now, have benefited from the stuff that we're sharing, and so that's just the lovely thing about it all. But anyway, back to the origin story. So I had this idea, and then I went to my then boyfriend, now husband, with the idea, and he's a big money nerd himself as well. And so he was immediately sold on it. And so we basically started as a YouTube channel back in April of 2018. So we've been doing this for over 4 years at this point. We started sharing just, short videos about the things that we knew about personal finance. And then also, just as much as we share like the technical money stuff, we also share a lot about our personal finances. We are very, very open and transparent about what's going on in our financial lives. And so every major money milestone has been shared on YouTube, essentially. Like we open up the whole Rolodex, the whole book, all the numbers. We do net worth updates every quarter, etc. So, and that has since grown into lots of different areas too, not just YouTube, but now we have a paid program for those who want to go a little bit deeper with us and get their money stitched together, doing, sponsored content, a lot of media related things. It's just been a really fun ride.
That's really awesome. And I love the fact that you brought all of that to the community, right? Because there's always been things for the high net worth, ultra high net worth, and they seem like they're always constantly getting more to some degree, right? And maybe not everyone, but the majority. And then everyone else is just kind of like in this boat of like, okay, well, maybe it will spill over to me at some point, whenever
Right,
at some
right.
point in time is. So as you're talking about really sharing your experience, because I think a lot of what you do that is so great is the fact that you do share it, you do really communicate financially, because most of our communities, we don't talk about money. We have a trouble talking about it with friends, with peers, let alone with probably partners or our spouses, right? So how did you really get so comfortable having those conversations with your with your partner first, and then being able to say, hey, we want to be able to visibly share this in a very transparent way to normalize that? What was that like?
Yes. So, for context, I have been with my husband since we were in high school. And so we kind of grew up together in that sense. We've gone through a lot of, big life moments, kind of coming of age while knowing each other and being together. So, I think that it wasn't really like a thing for us. It felt really natural to share. This is also with the context of me coming from a family where we didn't talk about money at all, right? And it was something that I never understood, something that never sat right with me. Just culturally, it just was not a thing that my parents did or that family did, that anyone in my sphere really talked about. And so we really just, from that context and just going through those experiences together, we kind of just ended up on the whole other extreme of the spectrum where, like, we share honestly a little too much, I feel, on the internet. But, really, we wanted to be that safe space that we didn't have growing up. We wanted to be that, that safe home for other people who grew up in households like mine where we didn't talk about money, and to normalize that conversation, because I feel like if we don't talk about it, we cannot learn. And that's really what's most important to us. And so that's why we are so open about sharing. It's not to brag by any stretch of the imagination. It's solely for the purpose that people can see, they can understand, they can relate, and know that it is okay to talk about money.
Yeah, absolutely, which is so key, right? It's like we have to acknowledge that money exists, that we might have had some hardships in the past, but that doesn't mean that we can't move forward, right?
Right.
And I think it's always, acknowledging the past, the present, and then, okay, well, what are the steps to getting to the point where you want to go, right? In the legacy you want to leave for your family. So, how do you all walk people through, like, from that start to that finish, and really keeping them engaged and making them feel comfortable and acknowledging, all of the things that kind of come with money? It's almost like that therapy journey as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's where we start, right? Even in our program, which is called Money 180, that's exactly where we start. I call it my musical framework for financial success. That's like the framework of what we walk people through, the M standing for money mindset, right? I think we have to start the conversation before I can talk to you about budgeting until you're blue in the face, right? But until we start with what is that money story? What are those money scripts? Like, what are our tendencies? What are the things that have been passed down to us generationally? What is the historical systemic context of all of this? Why we are where we are when it comes to money and economic standing? Like, we have to have that conversation first before we can get into any of this other stuff. And so that's exactly, where we start. We have those conversations about uncovering your money personality, really getting to the depth of why we do what we do, so that we can then be positioned in the appropriate place to then make changes. Because without that, I think it'll be hard to really implement change when you don't really know the root cause of why you are where you are in the first place.
Oh yeah, because a lot of it is just so, it goes back through obviously our history, just our culture in general, right? But then it's also your family dynamic and what
Yeah.
your parents probably did or didn't do, that we don't really realize how much that affected us and was built into our habits, and we don't even
Hmm.
realize it. And being able to address that head on and say, okay, well, I understand why, I'm always waiting to the last minute to pay my bills, right? Now I can kind of take that information and really start to move forward. So what are
Hmm.
you seeing as far as like the success stories? Because I'm sure you have a bunch of them from, as long as you all have been doing this. What are like the takeaways that people are doing and finding success in?
Yeah, the beautiful thing is that there are so many different types of wins, of takeaways. Even just scrolling through our YouTube comments is like one of my favorite things to do. Whenever I need a reminder of, like, the real impact that we're having on people, I just got to take one nice scroll through our YouTube comments, because it's really, 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 really great to see everything from people finally being comfortable talking about money. When we share our quarterly net worth updates, there are a few core people who will religiously share their net worth update every time we post one. They'll go in the comments, say, okay, I did my net worth this quarter. This is what it was. This is what happened. Like, I love that because we are, again, just normalizing the conversation. I think is a huge win in my book, because that sets the stage for so many other things in people's financial lives. There's one video that I think is our most popular video that talks about paying off student loans. For example, there have been loads and loads of people who have benefited from the information that, we shared in that video, who've been able to make progress on their student loans, people in our paid programs who have, with the knowledge that they gained, felt comfortable enough to buy their first home and take those major steps and increase their credit scores by like ridiculous amounts in a very short amount of time, just because now they have the knowledge, right? There was even one student who told me one time, hey, you know what? After we went through that whole money mindset exercise and they realized how much they really like hoarded cash for, and where that kind of came from. They're like, you know what? I just came back from a vacation and like, that's what I took away from this experience was I need to enjoy my money a little bit more, right? Like I am okay and I will be okay. And that to me is also a huge win in my book, right? Understanding that money is a tool and knowing, saving is great, but there also comes a point where it becomes a crutch and knowing how to balance that. So I think all these types of takeaways are just really great stuff that people are experiencing and really where we're seeing a lot of impact on people's lives, which has been just the most amazing thing to see and experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm thinking about like those first moments where, you find out or you have that aha moment when your client, when you look across it, it's just like, I get it. Or I've done this thing because, I've been in the safe space, or you followed up with me, or and all of those things kind of make such a big difference, especially when you have, kind of that accountability team that you really created within community, and then what you and your husband are really showing people that it can be done, right? It doesn't have to be that difficult. Your money doesn't have to control you, right? That story that you just said of that person hoarding the cash, but now realizing that, hey, like I can actually be like the money is there for me to spend as opposed for it kind of weighing me down, which I think a lot of times it does for people. So I know we talked a little bit about how you and your husband started this company, but what was that first moment for you wanting to be in the financial industry or wanting to go and complete your CFP? What was that first start?
Yes. So my light bulb moment, as I call it, really happened during my senior year of high school. I would say that's really where the light bulb went off. Because at that point, I knew I wanted to do something in business. Like I've been making the transition between high school and college, like thinking about all these things, what I want to major in, doing the FAFSA, which was a big part of this whole story. I'm looking at this big behemoth of a form and not understanding half of the words that are on it. And that's when it really hit me, like how much I did not know or understand about money in general. And like I said, at the same time, nobody was talking about money, but yet everybody seemed to be struggling. You just kind of felt that vibe from everybody, right? And so that just didn't sit right with me. And so that's really what sparked my interest in learning more about money from a professional sense. And so, really, in true Gen Z fashion, once that spark was lit, I kind of went down the Google rabbit hole, like searching about things about money. And that's how I really discovered the field of financial planning, right? There's nobody in my personal circle to this day who is a financial planner or, financial advisor. So I didn't have that exposure. I literally found it on Google. And that's how I learned about, the CFP board. I discovered NAPFA. And I'm like, this is a whole career where I could help people with money. Like, where do I sign? And so really from then, finding that like, freshman year, I would say this is toward the end of my freshman year at this point where I'm really coming to that, realization, going through that Google rabbit hole. But this is something I could do. I was like immediately sold. I was like, I'm done. I think I have found the thing that I want to do.
It was like, that was it, hands down.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. And also kind of looks at like the industry as a whole, right? The fact that we want to do a much better job so that people aren't having to find it on Google and they can see, people like you and know that this is a profession and one that they can find true success in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think being able to not only, have yourself educated and being able to educate your family and friends, but now you get to do that, double and triple time, really putting that passion into the world. So thankfully you did go down that rabbit hole. And when you went down it, you actually enjoyed all the stuff that you were seeing, because that's the next thing is right, actually executing on that. Now, I know that, you've been running this business for quite some time, so you've obviously been able to cultivate some sort of trust within the people that follow you, that, subscribe to your YouTube channel, that take your classes. How have you been able to really embed that trust dynamic? I know you've probably hinted on it a little bit today, but how is that really built in, and how important is that in as you continue to scale out your business?
Yeah, it is critical, right? Especially, I mean, we've always kind of been in this information age, internet era where there are, people who are sharing their lives more and more, sharing information more and more on the internet where things are, readily available. But I think so much of that has resulted in a place where now it's like there's so many voices, so many people, so many things that you don't know who to trust, especially when you're doing online research or you're just scrolling around YouTube or whatever. It's like, how do I even know that I can trust this person? So I think trust is really paramount especially in this digital space where, like I said, things are kind of at your fingertips at any given moment of the day. And so I think the more that people can see, like I said, that whole transparency piece of pulling back the curtain on our own finances, it's not just that we're not walking our talk or we're not practicing what we preach. And if we don't, we have an army of people ready to hold us accountable when we don't, right? And so I think that element in and of itself cultivates a lot of trust among the people who follow us, who watch our videos, things of that nature, who engage, who enroll in our programs, etc. I think that is a really core tenet of what allows people to trust us. Also, for the fact that unfortunately, in this day and age, there still is not a lot of diversity when it comes to the voices that are out there, specifically on YouTube as well. I mean, we're one of few, especially younger, like in our 20s, Black couples who you see on YouTube just chatting about their money like it's a regular Tuesday, right? So I think that the more that people can also see relatable walks of life, see relatable identities like theirs, I think that also builds trust as well to an extent.
Yeah, absolutely. And trust is so important. And you really just kind of, spot on said it, right? The more people see a lot of that representation and people that look like them telling their own stories and in mimicking that, right? Like, hey, this person looks like me, or this person, we had that same conversation last week, right? And this is what we did. And being
Mhm.
able to see that visually is so important as well. So, again, yes, thankful for all that you all are bringing. Do you see a big difference like within the Gen Z community and how they're really starting to adopt more of this financial mindset? Is there kind of a shift or change there, or is it still, people are really still trying to kind of see what's going on and test the waters a bit?
Yeah, I would say the difference between like millennials and Gen Z, I mean, as people probably know, we tend to be a bit more out there and standing for what we believe and like
Yes, you do. It's
no
okay.
holds like barred. Like, so I think that really extends to money too, where it's like I think we finally moved into a stage where again we're seeing less and less of money being a taboo thing, where people are coming expecting to engage around these topics and expecting to share their personal information on the internet. So I think that's been like the trend and the shift that I've observed personally, and it's just really refreshing to see. So I love that.
Yeah, it almost makes me think about the fact that now I feel like more and more people are talking about their salaries, right? I think someone was talking about this recently where you can't, companies can't hide anymore, right? Years ago,
Yeah.
it was very taboo for companies just in general to release this, salaries if it wasn't, public information from the C-suite. But everything
Mhm.
and below that, no one was, releasing it, talking about it. It was just kind of that hard stop of, very need to know basis. But now we're seeing the floodgates open up, right? Where people are asking questions. You kind of
Yes.
have to post that salary.
Yes.
And peers are getting more comfortable having those conversations saying, hey, like I made this. If you're going to interview with this company for this position, this is what you should ask for or more, right? Or don't
Mhm.
take anything lower than this because I know personally that they can pay you more. And that's also, going back to probably a lot of what you're seeing and doing that increase, hopefully, in possibly the wealth gap that we know exists. But is that a conversation that you see people are having more and more within your platform or just in the greater ecosystem?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. As people are more informed, I would say honestly these days too, with more information comes more knowledge and being able to make more informed decision and decisions. And it's also a topic that we talk about on our channel, and something that we also incorporate, as I mentioned, as part of that money mindset discussion. It's not just, okay, what is your propensity for this, or your money personality, or your generational trauma. That also extends to what are the systemic barriers through legislation, through different things that people are now waking up to, and getting that knowledge and seeing how the puzzle pieces all fit together in that way. Stuff that has intentionally prevented certain groups of people in this country from building wealth. And it's like, it all makes sense now. It's not just all my fault. And that realization, I think, has been really eye-opening for a lot of people. And so I think those conversations will become more and more mainstream as time goes on. And I think they're necessary conversations, and I'm glad that, we're having them.
No, I couldn't agree more. It's like, it's almost like finally, right?
Yeah.
Finally, we're having, like, the veil is being lifted, and people are being held accountable. Companies are being held more accountable because of the fast, communication and information overload from technology. So it's like, it has its good parts and then bad parts and annoying all in between. So from being a business owner, obviously you're running your own practice, you're also scaling this business. How have you all been able to just kind of really build that and scale? I know sometimes, it's tough to run a business, right? And putting all of the stuff in place, which is literally everything, becoming the 1-800 number, all of the things that kind of come with that. How have you all really been able to kind of tackle that to get your business off the ground and then to really scale it and continue to go?
Yeah, and honestly, we're really still in the throes of trying to do that, right? So I think that we are trying to enter kind of a new stage of business, of growth, hopefully. Coming up here, it's been a grind. It truly has, right? Being an entrepreneur, especially being in a space that, I mean, it's been around, but also in the grand scheme of things, it really hasn't been around for entirely that long. Being in this world of online education and, online influencers, like, it's still relatively young, right? And so you really have to find the right people to mentor you. And that's something that we've invested in a lot, especially as of late, as mentors and programs and things that are going to help us, show us the way that we can, have even more impact and extend our message to more people. And so that's really what we are in the thick of doing right now. And hopefully we get there. I know we will. It's just a matter of time. But I think it's really about investing in those mentors, and also being strategic with your time. Like I mentioned, we're doing this on top. Both of us have full-time jobs, right? We're running this business together. I also have a part-time job, and he also has a part-time job.
So it is possible.
It's possible. It takes a lot. I'm not
Right.
even gonna lie. It takes a lot, and a lot of discipline, and a lot of passion, and a lot of work. But I think we're both very much committed to this. We see the impact that it's already having, and we would love to amplify that impact even more. And so I know we will get there. Right now we are kind of in the throes of figuring out how to do exactly that.
Which is real, and I feel like people just kind of forget that, right? Even at different stages of your business, you're still in the thick of that grind and having to, have those deep conversations with yourself, right? Because some days you're just like, just throw it all,
Just throw the whole
throw it
thing
all out the
away.
window, throw it all away. And then you find yourself like seconds later trying to pick it all back up, right?
Right.
And
And you
also
don't have,
just,
and don't be afraid to, like, go slow to go fast. That's another
yeah.
lesson that I'm learning too, where it's
Mhm.
like, we've taken a break from YouTube at this point. We haven't posted in like 2 months, but
Mhm.
now we're getting back into it, and we're coming back stronger. So I think it's also knowing when it's okay to take a break,
Yep.
take a rest. Like, also, it's not that we haven't been doing anything. We've been focusing on, different parts of the business, right?
Mhm.
And so I think it's okay also to slow down, to go fast. And I think it's kind of where we are right now in that juncture. So
Oh yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. I'm glad you said that too, because that's one thing we forget, right? Like, a couple of years ago it was always that hustle mentality and no sleep and all this stuff, and it's just like, no, that is not healthy.
Hmm.
I'm agitated when I don't
Right.
sleep
Me
properly. I
too.
was
I
like,
cannot
that,
function, okay?
yeah, like,
On
that
a
is
personal,
not
I
the
cannot
way.
function without sleep. It's
Absolutely.
impossible.
Yeah, likewise. I'm just like, that does not work for me. I need a
Right.
certain amount of hours of sleep. I need to step away completely. And that's all healthy too, right? And to your point, it's okay to take breaks within certain parts of your business. Like, not everything has to be on full speed. Not everything can
Mhm.
be on full speed, right?
Right.
You're throwing all those balls up in the air, like, you are going to drop a lot of them, and that's okay too, right? It's just that constant process of picking things up when you can. So, as we kind of get to the end here, I do want to ask you what brings you joy at the end of the day?
That is a great question. At the end of a literal day, you mean?
Well, actually, no. Let's not say at the end of a day. Not a
Okay.
literal,
I want to make
literal
sure I'm
day.
interpreting the question correctly. Yeah,
What
no, what are
brings
just
you
the things that
joy?
bring me joy in general? Going back to what I said, like seeing the impact of what we're doing, the tangible impact in the lives of people, like getting those DMs, getting those comments, getting those text messages, like, hey, I just did this or I just did that because of the things that I'm learning from you all. Like that stuff brings me genuine joy because it really is just a way for me to see the impact of the work that we're doing. So I think that brings me um, a lot of joy in my life. Another thing that brings me a lot of joy is also just taking time to rest. It brings me a lot of joy. Okay. I think my favorite place in the world is in my bed. And so whenever I have the time to just unwind, recharge, disconnect, like that brings me a lot of joy as well. So I'd say those are kind of the two big things that I could think of off the top.
Awesome. Yes, that disconnection is so overlooked, but
Hmm.
extremely, extremely important. And often sometimes hard to do, right? Sometimes it's hard that first time you kind of try to disconnect, but after a while, it just gets really, really good, right? That feeling
Yeah.
is amazing. So what's the future for you look like? Like, where do you see yourself in the next maybe just like 3 years?
Honestly, wherever God wishes to take me. you know,
Amen.
I
Amen.
am such a planner, as you probably know that I am such a planner. Like I'm
Yes.
that person where I've got my whole life planned out for days and miles. Like we already have 2023 vacations booked. Like we are those people. So it's always in my nature to plan, but I've realized like even over the past, few short years of like adulthood, like you cannot plan for everything and life is very can be very fragile and you just never know. And so I have tried to stop like trying to make my 5-year plan or my 10-year plan and really just go with wherever God has intention for me to be in that moment. So all that to say, I really don't know, but I'm excited for the journey wherever it leads me.
Awesome. I love that answer
Yeah.
because that's really life, right? It's like we can know what we want to do as far as like goals and things we want to hit, but sometimes, yeah, you do kind of have to just trust in the journey, even when it's rough, and know that, hey, like we've gotten through it before, right? So
Yeah.
that's really awesome to hear you say that. So, Akeiva, thank you so much for coming on this episode. Please, tell people where they can find you and get in touch with you.
Yes, of course. This has been really, really fun. If you Google my name, I promise you'll find me. My name is very SEO friendly, but you can also connect with me here on LinkedIn, Akeiva Ellis, or my first name, whatever. Like I said, you'll promise. I cannot hide. And if you want to connect with the Bemused, our YouTube is just type in the Bemused. You'll find it. That's B as in boy, EMUSED. And we're at Instagram at the Bemused as well. And our website is thebemusedtv.com. So if you want to connect with us there. And also if you want to learn more about what we're up to over at Valentine Partners, our website is valentinepartners.com. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome, awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll have you back because I know you'll have continued success. So we all want to hear more about that. So thanks for all of your continued support coming on the Represented series, and we'll see you all again. For everyone, make sure that you catch up on some more episodes of the Represented series and then those that will continue to come out. So we look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.